Greetings.
Hello, and welcome to episode 9 of Hearthaholics, a Hearthstone strategy podcast about sitting back, chatting with friends, and figuring out how to be more awesome at this game. I'm your host, Brian, and joining me today are the two people who always join me, one of which is Andres. Hello, Andres. How you doing?
Hey, Brian. I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
As am I. And Billy, are you glad to be here? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Absolutely not. This is the worst moment of my week all the time. You are taking me away from Heroes of the Storm, which is very disappointing. But no, for real, I'm super excited to be here as always every week.
Oh, good. I was actually getting really worried there. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible.
We're
going to drop down
Brian's
to
feelings.
We're going to be rank 1.4 among podcasts because we don't have any enthusiasm from one of our co-hosts.
No.
But luckily, we are still standing strong at 1.31456722. So
I love that joke has been going from the first episode, and we're here in episode 9, almost our 10th anniversary, and we're still going with that one.
I think we're that high because people enjoy the consistency.
You know what? I think so too.
I like that it gets more specific as time goes on. Like,
yeah.
Right now we're up to 8 decimal points.
Exactly. Well, it's kind of like, the change is much slower as you get near the top. It's like trying to get to legend number 1.
It's like asymptotic. It just never gets to number 1. It just keeps
it's a grind.
Getting closer.
I just have to spend 50 hours refreshing the page every week. It's terrible. But I have up-to-date analysis. In fact, it might change during the show depending on what we say. So, So let's start out with a bang by talking about what we've been doing this last week in Hearthstone. Who wants to start? I'm going to throw this as an open question.
I've been playing some of the latter. I started back with my druid. I want to get my golden druid up and running. I'm really close. I'm like 130 wins away. So I made the math. If I play around 7 games a day, I think I got it.
What kind of druid are you running?
Yeah,
is that what you're aiming for this season? Okay, cool.
Yeah, just to get it. Because I've been kind of putting it off. I've been playing so many other classes. And the thing is, at first I started with Warlock and just played that class straight up, for a whole, month and a half. And I got the Golden Warlock so fast. But then I haven't gotten a Golden class ever since, just because I've been playing a little bit of each class. So all my wins are kind of scattered.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'm just going to make a little push this season with the Druid, see if I can make it far with it.
So you're going combo druid, ramp druid?
Yeah, I started with this aggressive druid, but I call it the anti-aggro druid because it's an aggro druid, but it's teched out against aggro since it's the beginning of the season and you run into a lot of Zoo and Hunter and...
So what are druid techs for aggro?
So, for example, I took out one of the Astrid Drakes and put in 2 Sludge Belchers. I put in also a Zombie Chow instead of Cenarius.
Yep.
And then instead of running double combo, I run Kids and Mystic sometimes if it's a lot of Mage and a lot of Hunter.
Nice.
Or you can swap that for another Astrid Drake or any other kind
I'm just waiting for the game where you're both top decking and you draw Zombie Chow and you're like, oh my gosh, I wish this was a Cenarius.
And it does happen. You lose on some matchups. Let's say if you are matched against a control warrior, it wouldn't be as good as your super aggro druid where you're not running Zombie Chow, but you run Cenarius instead. Yep. So it is a compromise, but
for sure,
it's depending on the decks that you're facing,
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, that's exciting. I'm nowhere near any golden class, so that's
it'll come, man. It'll come.
Far out of my league, but I'm pretty excited about that.
Billy can tell us all about golden classes.
That's a great transition, Billy. How many golden classes have you gotten this last week?
I've got none this last month.
You're slacking off.
I know. Dude, Heroes takes up so much time. Oh my god.
It does, especially with the way you play it.
I'm actually fairly close to having all the heroes in that game. I'm gonna be buying my last 2 this week, hopefully, maybe, I don't know.
With gold or money?
Probably one with money and one with gold. But as far as Hearthstone goes, I actually haven't played too much this month because obviously it's the start of the month, and I'm kind of waiting for the beginning of the ladder to kind of die down a little bit. Gonna wait a couple days, and then I'm really gonna hit ladder hard. Although I did play a little bit at the end of last month, just trying out different decks, seeing what's good and what I enjoy playing because I really hadn't been keeping up with the meta for a while. And the only decks that are really big right now, as far as I'm aware, is like, well, the top tier ones are like Patron Warrior and Handlock, right? They're the two big, mainly because they counter. Well, Handlock counters Patron. But you know, I out of those two, I much prefer playing Handlock, and I'm not necessarily bored of Handlock, but whenever I'm playing Handlock, I find it tedious. I find like every single game doesn't really have like a huge... Well, I guess it does have a huge moment because you're playing a bunch of giants and stuff, but you're so used to that experience if you've played a lot of Handlock, so it kind of feels dull after a while. But I don't know. I'm just finding it hard to find a deck that I can consistently play and enjoy.
Yeah, I know what
Handlock
you mean.
Oh, go ahead, Andres.
I was just gonna say that I know what he means. Like, Handlock does have like this power plays where you put down an 8/8, but
it does.
It's kind of just that. Like, I mean, the most you can hope for is if your opponent doesn't play around your giants, you can do like double molten, maybe mountain giant, and then taunts, and that's like your super big combo.
The most you can hope for is like 2/9/9s with taunts.
I guess what I'm saying is like whenever you play decks, for example, like Patron Warrior, where you can have a turn where you fill up your board, fill up your hand, and wipe everything your opponent has, and then suddenly you're like up and leading.
Like Oil Rogue.
Or Oil Rogue, where you deal like 18 damage, clear their board, and then like kill him or something like that.
Well, everything is still new and fresh for me with Handlock, so I'm still enjoying that. That's what I've been playing pretty much this entire past week. The last couple days, I've switched to mid-range Zoo because I kind of want a slightly faster deck to kind of be working up the ladder with, and I'm just kind of curious to try something different. So that's been fun. I haven't had a lot of games in with it, but they've been going pretty well. Back to your point, though, Billy, about Handlock versus Patron Warrior on kind of leading the ladder. I just like the visual imagery of this battlefield, and on one side you have all these giants charging, and on the other side you have a rabble of drunken dwarves charging the giants. They just keep clashing in an endless warfare. It's pretty awesome. But
the giants are exploding because of Shadow Flame and just destroying all of the...
This sounds pretty badass, honestly.
There's just a statue.
This is going to be the plot of the Warcraft movie.
Oh my god.
Like the climax is when this statue that has been sitting in the middle of the battlefield the entire time just explodes with Shadow Flame and kills all the dwarves. It's going to be a good moment for sure.
Do you understand how much I'm going to cry if there's like a Hearthstone Easter egg in the Warcraft movie somehow? Like, I don't know how they can do that without breaking the fourth wall.
I mean, they could include the game. Let's say they're filming a scene in the city or something and go into a tavern. They could have like two like guys in the background playing Hearthstone. Oh my god, I'll be so happy if that happens.
I will only be truly happy if one of the two people has been broed. Then I will be.
Oh my god! Yes,
I will be fully happy.
Please, Blizzard, get on it.
What if one of them gets really mad because he lost the game and just flips the table, and then a bunch of drunken dwarves just come into the tavern and start fighting?
Hey everyone, get in here!
There you go. That could be the Easter egg.
Right, they have to be so careful with that movie though, because if they pump it full of video game Easter eggs and references, people are going to start like it's going to seem a little cheesy.
Yeah,
so
they don't need to make it so in your face. Like we're talking about a background scene here.
Yeah. Not like, you have a yellow exclamation point over your head. That's funny. Hopefully we won't see that. But all this talk about what we've been playing kind of leads directly into the topic you wanted to bring this week, Andres.
Sure, yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit about, it's a new month, it's a new ladder. I want to talk about how we approached the start of the season and like, do you guys like the reset and like, how do we go about it?
To respond to like the second question there about liking the reset, I think that's an interesting thing to focus on first.
Sure, let's start with that.
Do because if you're knocking your head up against the wall, I'm not a person who gets the legend every month, and if you kind of know you're going to do that, I can definitely see the ladder reset just being annoying. But I kind of like it because it feels like everyone's like suddenly at the start gates again, and everything's super unpredictable and just fun, and you never know if you're facing a legend player or you're facing a new player. So you kind of have that time to go back to the beginning and also give you a feeling of progress again. Like if you've been bumping your head up against rank 10 or rank 7 or rank 5 or wherever you've been, suddenly you're thrown into a place where you might lose, but you know you're going to make some substantial progress in the rank. So it kind of gives you that feeling of progression that you may have not gotten from ladder.
It does scramble things up a bit, that's for sure.
That said, I'm totally with all the people that like want to revamp it. I think there are a lot of things that can improve. But as for just if I'm excited and enjoy the start of a season, I typically am more than I see it as like, shoot, I have to do all this over again. But what about you guys?
What do you think, Billy?
I'm not sure if I like the reset being as often as it is, but like the only alternative is kind of making it 2 months, and that would be kind of too long unless you want to make it complicated and make it like a month and a half, and
maybe
that even gets too far. And I don't know. I like the reset, but I don't like how often it is. But in my head, there's no way to change it, so I just deal with it and be happy about it.
Well, Diablo has longer seasons. I don't actually know how long they are.
But it's like silly long, right? Isn't it like... I
think it's like 3 or 4 months long.
Yeah.
I actually like the idea of 3 months. Maybe it's just because I'm in the business mindset, but I view years in quarters. So like I could see first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter being like pretty good ways of doing things. The first 3 months, the second 3 months. So that would probably be the system I'd want to go because it's less arbitrary since that's a pretty common standard, but it gives you more time.
They could also make it add more ranks in there.
Yeah, you could add more ranks or...
to make it more interesting for the
again, add more rewards, and if they're giving those out quarterly instead of monthly, it's easy for Blizzard to do without flooding their economy. So, our idea of like, you get gold for being ranked 2 or you get cards or whatever. If you're only giving those out every 3 months, you can be a lot more generous with them. And thus encourage people a lot more to rank up. So
yeah, that's an interesting point.
And it also means you like it right now takes what, like 50, 60 hours to get to legend or something crazy.
Yeah, I would say for like a person that is good, not like a professional player. I would say that sounds about right. Maybe a little less, but I would say maybe 20 or 30 hours.
Okay, 20 to 30 hours, maybe 40. Splitting that over 3 months is a lot more doable for people who don't have a ton of time to put into Hearthstone. But have the skill to get there. So like giving you that longer period to rank up, but then still having these resets seems like a pretty good compromise if they don't want to overhaul the entire system. But
I feel like they wouldn't do it, but I would much prefer it if the game was the way you just described. Like that would be a better Hearthstone for me. I would enjoy that experience more, but I understand as for Blizzard, it's much more beneficial for them to have it this way.
I think a lot of people would get annoyed as well because it would probably mean a card back every quarter instead of a card back every month.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But yeah, what about you, Andres? Do you like this new season time?
I do like the new season time. It's a fresh new start, and like you said, like you start the ladder, you feel fresh, you kind of feel a little more daring to experiment with new stuff. Pull out that crazy new deck that you haven't played because you're scared you're gonna lose some ranks. Try out new stuff, and you also get some crazy opponents sometimes. If you get lucky, you can sometimes even match against like a pro player, like randomly.
I'm not sure I would consider that lucky.
I mean, it's cool. I mean, you might lose, but it's still cool. You know, you can still take a screenshot and be like, "Hey, I matched against Colento."
Exactly. Yeah.
I remember one time at the start of the season when I went for Legend and I got nowhere close because that was around. I think that was the month before I met you guys. Anyhow, point being, I ran into who was it? It's one of the pro players. He plays poker on his streams when he's playing Hearthstone at the same time. Who is that? I think who that is.
I don't know.
It might be Forsen? Maybe?
Okay,
I don't know.
Let's go with that.
Let's just call it Forsen. I'm probably wrong about that, but the guy who plays poker while playing Hearthstone while streaming. I ran into him when playing Face Hunter because I was, climbing the ranks. It was the very start of the season where at like rank 8 or something crazy like that. And I beat him in scumbag fashion, and he was upset, and it made me happy.
Nice.
Nicely done. But this kind of goes on. Oh, go ahead, Andres.
Oh, I was just gonna say that my last thought on it is that I like the length of the seasons as it is right now.
Oh, really? That's
I think it's a good amount of time for people who are really good at the game have more than enough time to get to Legend. Then people who are just good at the game have a fair chance. people who are okay with the game are gonna have a hard time getting to Legend, and that's where you start a lot of people complaining about the length of the season, being like, oh, well, it's too hard, we need more time, it makes it too much of a grind, and it does, like, people that don't have enough time to pour into the game are gonna have a harder time reaching Legend this amount of time. But then at the same time, when you look at the top of the Legend, most of the top players kind of just play the ladder a little conservatively, not conservatively, but like with not as much passion throughout, and then it's not till the last like 2 days where they go downtown into the ladder. Like throughout the month, they just kind of play enough to get them close to top 100, and then is on the last 2 days, and mainly on the last day where they really, really do the last push.
I will say that there's something beneficial for Blizzard for making it a longer season. I understand your point, but and I go back to what I said before, they're not going to change it. But if they were going to change it, I could definitely see why. And the main reason why is they currently have 3 games which take a huge time commitment. And they're only the 3 that I play. And there's other, like StarCraft and Diablo, I'm sure also have a huge time sink.
Oh, StarCraft.
Yes. But Heroes of the Storm is like an amazing time sink if you want to actually get really, really good at the game. Or even just to climb the Hero League ladder. Or, World of Warcraft to get to the highest level and then start raiding. Both of those games take a huge time commitment, and then to also throw Hearthstone on top of that, there's a lot of games now, which all of these games are live. Like, you can't, like, there's no Heroes as in beta. That's not a defense anymore. Now they have 3 games live that all take a huge time commitment, and 2 of which they make they have the chance to make a silly amount of money on, because there's not just a limited pay a subscription every month like WoW is. Heroes and Hearthstone, you can spend as much as money on you that you want on it, and you'll still have stuff to buy. So they're the games that probably are going to make the most money, and if they want to make more money, I would stretch out the seasons. That way people have more time to play both games. For me, it's hard to concentrate on Hearthstone because I do want to play games like Heroes, like I don't play WoW anymore, but like Heroes, and other, like Heroes, and then like other games, like non-Blizzard games.
Yeah, I think for me, it primarily goes back to the less Blizzard builds around a carrot and stick approach in terms of getting you to play Hearthstone, and the more they focus on the games themselves being the reward for playing, I think the better off they are. And what I mean by that is, I think stuff like their built-in quest system works pretty well for this. I think if they had got achievements in, that would be really good. If they tracked win percentages and gave people an idea like in-game stat tracking, a very small percentage of the players I'm sure use out-of-game stat tracking, but that helps you feel like you make progress in terms of knowing a deck and getting good at a deck, even just by playing 10 games with it, because you're like, oh cool, I've logged 10 games with that deck, I have this win percentage against these decks. If I even played 10 and got a 90% win ratio, I'd feel really good even if I didn't make it to Legend. So more they can focus on enjoying
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I apologize. I do understand why they don't implement something like that, and that's mainly because a newer player, if he's just wanting to play the game for fun, and he sees that all of his decks are a low win percentage because he's new to the game, that might discourage him from trying to take the game more seriously, or etc. Or you get the even worse situation of someone spending money on a pack and they get some special card, and their win percentage is really low on the deck that they're running their special card, and now they're upset because they feel like they spent money on nothingness.
That's a good point. A little knowledge can be a dangerous thing, and I think how they implement it might be important. But in general, I would like them to be more transparent with information. Like when they released that information they have now of like, you're in the top so-and-so percent of players for being this rank, that was pretty smart. I think that gets people really excited. But just in general, I like the idea of people, not everyone needs to make it to Legend. And that doesn't need to be the end game. And the more they can focus on like the matches themselves and your personal history and your personal playing being what's important to you, rather than trying to like the only important thing being getting up on ladder, I think people can get like more value of every match they play rather than having this, again, carrot and stick approach to where they need to get.
I like that, Brian. I really like this points that you're making, and I would love an achievement system. You cannot imagine how much I would love that. I thought the achievement system in like Warcraft and in Diablo is really, really good. And it gives you an incentive to do like certain things that you normally wouldn't do. Like, especially if they add like cool little achievements, like win again a game with warrior where you have 40 plus armor or something like that.
Right.
And then you can, it becomes like a challenge, like, oh, I'm gonna challenge this achievement and complete it and like add it to my little thing of achievements and like build a cool profile. I like all those ideas. Also some way to keep track of some of your games, some way. It doesn't have to be like super robust just because I know they want to keep it simple, but at least to see like your win percentage with a deck, like that would be enough I
think that'd be really good.
And be a huge help too to see if you're doing well with a deck or not.
Yep. For sure. I think another reason that might be a problem for them is if you only have 9 deck slots, so if you delete one, you're losing your history with it. And that would feel really bad to be like deleting your archives. Yeah. So they need to think around that problem as well. There are a lot of directions they can go, but it's just a general direction I want them to be taking it. But to close out this topic in general, just quick fire, what are you guys going to focus on this season? Like, what are you going to bring to the ladder? Andres, you said it's going to be Druid?
I think I'm going to try to go for the Golden Druid, and then there's a few other classes that I'm going to play. I still want to play Patron Warrior, still one of my favorite decks right now. And then the number one on NA last season, I think, was a Hunter, this guy named Jab, and he posted a cool Reddit post about his mid-range Hunter deck. It's a very traditional mid-range Hunter with Savannah Hymens and double Houndmasters. So it was very interesting to see, and he got number one, and he was giving good praise to the deck. So I think I want to give that deck a little go too. Especially as the meta is right now, I think it would work really well. It would
be really interesting if the person who made number one legend, as he was playing a deck, was like already building a counter deck to it. So once he reaches number one legend and everyone starts copying that deck, he has like a deck in the wings to beat them with.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. He already knows how to play the deck really well, so I know he knows how to counter it.
Exactly, that's really interesting. Yeah, I saw that mid-range is taking over hybrid, so that was interesting. Billy, what are you going to be bringing?
I'm still not 100% sure. I am trying to figure out whether I would like to get a paladin or a warrior deck, preferably not patron warrior, but just because I don't enjoy the playstyle. But I'm still not 100% sure what I would like to take into this season's ladder. I still have to try out a couple different things before I'm set. That mid-range Hunter sounds fun, though. Might check that out.
For me, it's looking like it's going to be mid-range Warlock to Zulok to kind of get through the early ranks. And then once I'm starting to maybe hit a wall with that, I'm thinking of transitioning back to Handlock for more of the high win percentage play.
Handlock should be really nice, too, especially as you get higher in the ranks.
Yeah,
as long as you're not seeing a lot of Face Hunter, Handlock should be a really good pick right now.
Yeah, so it's looking like all Warlock for me. I mean, I would love to go back to Paladin if I find a way to make that viable again. I also feel like it's been way too long since I played Priest. So that Japanese Priest that you showed in your video last week, Billy, which you can check out on the Hearthaholics YouTube channel. Had to get the plug in here sometime. Like, that one would be really interesting for me to try.
That deck's a lot of fun. Super board control heavy, so I think that you would enjoy that deck quite a lot.
It's been way too long since I've gone back to Priest, so I'm excited about that. And Control Warrior is always calling me because that's like my thing.
Come back to me, Brian.
But if I go Warrior, I might just have to try Patron Warrior for a while because I just feel so ignorant about that deck still.
Funnily enough, now that I've been playing a lot of Patron Warrior, I've been kind of more inclined to try the Control Warrior now.
Yes. We're converting you slowly.
Yeah.
We give you all these shiny toys.
I've been kind of liking the Warrior playstyle, especially because it feels nice that you're so resilient. Even with the Patron Warrior, when they get you really low, you have so many ways to start building back your health with armor. And then you just start feeling like this heavy tank that cannot be taken down.
Yeah. And the nice thing about the armor is it's also a counter against Freeze Mage, which is good against like everything else.
Oh my god.
So
you get a Freeze Mage and you get so happy. You just press the armor up button as much as you can and save all your armor smiths and whirlwind and you never die.
It'd be really interesting if they introduced some kind of like armor destruction card that was then run in Freeze Mage.
Oh, yes, please.
That'll be interesting because rogues and mages have a lot of trouble with this, and it becomes games where it's just so one-sided that it's not even fair. So I don't know. They might try to add a card specifically to those two classes. Maybe not a neutral card, because if druids or something really aggressive gets access to that, it might be really bad for warriors.
That would just
but at least to help out mages and rogues against that problem.
Oh yeah, I desperately want I know we just talked about it being class specific, but I would desperately want like a 2-cost one, like a 3-cost 1/1 or something that removed 5 armor as it came into play. That would be nice.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
3-cost 1/1. Yeah, I can see that working. 5
The
damage.
only reason
for
why I
3.
went for that is because draw card is usually valued at 2 mana and shield block is valued at 3 mana. So that draws you a card and gives you 5 armor. So I'm roughly rating 5 armor to be at 1 mana.
Ah, gotcha. Wait, then a 1/1 for 2 isn't very good.
I said 1/1 for 3.
I know, but I'm saying if you're taking 1 mana for the 5 armor, then you're paying 2 mana for a 1/1.
Maybe
correct?
even
Yes.
it can even be a minion that when it hits double for armor.
Yeah, that actually is a really interesting thing. Instead of just like a battle cry effect, it's like a minion that can do a special amount of damage to armor.
Yeah.
Well,
That's kind of neat, like a shield breaker or something.
I would not like to see that because the type of decks that want to remove armor aren't decks that want minions on the board.
Well, also the bigger difficulty is Warrior has a ton of ways to remove stuff. So like you play that,
True.
the Warrior probably has an answer. So it's not really.
You either have
remove
to
the
be a
problem.
battle cry or a spell for it to work.
Yeah, that's a fair point. All right, speaking of classes, which we've been talking about, that leads on to my topic.
There was
My
so
topic
much.
this
There
week-
was so like everybody, please go back and watch this episode. There was so many better spots to dive in with this.
There was, but you guys always had an interesting point.
I know, but like out of all of those, to this one.
All right, we're gonna go with it though. We're gonna forge bravely forward through my
Just
segues
bash the topics through.
and talk about my topic this week, which is, I think, a really interesting question that we've never directly addressed. It's also a really simple one. What's your favorite class? Andres, what's your favorite class?
Actually, Brian, I have a confession to make.
What?
I hate
Death
all of the
Knight?
classes. I don't have any preference.
You don't have any preference?
No, I'm just kidding. I definitely do. That is hard. I can give you my top 3 right now.
Let's go with that.
My top 3 favorite ones definitely have to be Warlock,
Mm-hmm.
Paladin,
Mm-hmm.
and Druid.
I am. Well, my list is actually the same as that, except you would replace Druid with Warrior.
Nice.
I think.
Oh,
I think. And now I'm doubting myself. Billy, what is your favorite class?
I'm gonna be slightly less fancy than you guys, and I'm actually gonna answer the question correctly instead of giving.
You're going to give us your 9 favorite classes?
No, okay. I'm gonna answer what is your favorite class, not as what your top 3 favorite classes.
Yeah.
My favorite class is Priest, hands down, because Priest is
I
awesome.
thought so. Okay, so
Cool.
quick, why? Why Priest, Billy?
Well,
Are you of a religious bent?
yes. No, Priest is just there. Like when I first got into the game after the sad miracle rogue nerf.
Yep.
One of the classes I kind of gravitated towards was Priest, just because they can do fun little things like thought steal your lay on hands, and later on in the game, or can I lay on hands, get wrecked. And
They
just,
can do fun things, that is true.
They can do just so many fun things. I mean, back then people were running mind control, and mind control is just silly fun. And then like Shadow Word deathing your own Sylvanas. And at the time, Amaz was super popular, and he was doing a bunch of crazy priest stuff, and I loved watching him do that. So Amaz inspired me to play priest, and ever since I loved priest. Sadly, priest was not my first golden class though. But that's just because it's too slow to play to even attempt to go for golden like that.
It's probably one of the hardest ones to get golden.
Yeah.
I had a lot of affinity towards Priest as well. It reminds me of like a lot of like kind of blue and blue-black decks from Magic, which are just really about like messing with your opponent and just doing crazy stuff to their board, and not just reacting to what's out there in efficient ways like Warrior, but like fooling with what they have out there and doing your own crazy combos. And it's like one of the most fun and creative classes to play. I just haven't gone back to it in a long time, so it hasn't like been near and dear to my heart recently. But I love the idea behind it. I'm so glad it's in the game.
I would respond with something like, yeah, but like my Magic knowledge is so non-existent that like that doesn't even work for me.
Andres knows what I'm talking about.
I do know. I have a feeling that Priest is gonna get some love in the upcoming card expansion.
Yeah.
It's been so long forgotten that I feel like they're gonna try to give it a little boost.
Yeah,
kind of like they did with Warrior and Patron, like
you
a different
Twilight
spin.
Whelp and Resurrect.
Yeah.
Not been great.
I think they're gonna try to give the class a little different spin. Maybe dragons is it. Maybe they're trying to introduce dragons to Priest. There's just not enough right now to make it really work.
Yeah,
Resurrect
probably.
is so cool. I don't want to hear any Resurrect hate.
I'm sorry.
Resurrect
I already
is too awesome.
laughed at it.
I like Resurrect too.
Resurrect
Right.
was the thumbnail for our first ever podcast.
Oh my gosh, look at me betraying our origins.
I know.
I hold nothing but disdain for that first
No
podcast.
respect for our ancestors.
We've
There's
grown so
there's
much.
a lot of Priest going in our thumbnails.
It's a good point.
In our first episode, we had Resurrect. In our third episode, we had Twilight Whelp.
And I believe the first episode was the only episode in which we are the #1 Hearthstone podcast
I
ever
know.
since then. This just in, because of my disdain towards our first episode, we are now rank 1.5332, so we're dropping throughout this episode. I'm sorry.
Wouldn't it be
It
great
was
if you
terrible.
forgot the first number you said and then like increased our number by accident? That would have been.
Well, I mean, it was an increase, but lower is better for ranks. But I'm pretty sure I remember the original. I have faith in me. But yeah, Andres, going back to your picks here to jump in a little more in depth, like why are those classes, or maybe even just pick one of those, like what about it appeals to you in terms of playing?
If I had to pick one, I would probably go for Warlock.
Yes.
Warlock, it was my first love in this game, and it's still one of my favorite classes.
I don't mean to interject, but is it because you can draw a card for 2 mana and that's OP?
So before we even get into that, before we even get into like how good the hero power is, I just like the theme of Warlocks. Just like the idea of like this like evil beings like summoning demons and just like controlling hordes of cool stuff and just like sacrificing them to getting more power. I like that theme. Like as a fantasy theme, it's just cool, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not something you see every day.
I don't know where you live, Andres, but there are warlocks all over my neighborhood.
Also, you implied that all warlocks are evil, and I disagree, sir. They're
I mean, you
warlocks.
do
are
delve
chaotic
into
neutral
the
warlocks.
dark magics, and you have to make like pacts with demons and stuff, which involves certain level of evilness.
Listen, my level, my level 83 something. I forget what race it was. I think it was like a gnome warlock. Disagrees with you. He is a good guy, my
I have
sir.
a very morally conflicted dwarven warlock. I'm not actually sure if he's evil or not, but he definitely has some evil bents to him.
Like
Mostly
what?
the fact that he's a warlock.
There has to be something crooked about you if you're
Yeah.
willing to explode living things to kill
Listen,
other
man,
living things.
Imps are cool.
It's
Why
so
you
cool.
gonna hate
That's a good
I
counter
agree.
proposal.
Imps are really cool. But then, yeah, aside from that, just the class in general is really strong, and I really like what the hero power has to offer. It creates really cool decks like Handlock, and it makes quirky decks like Zulog very viable. And then down the line, it might also give life to crazy creations, just because the hero power enables like that combo-y, long-term kind of strategy play.
I also love the mechanic of demons doing something bad to you to be powerful.
Yeah, I like
think that's
that. I like
really
the
cool.
mecanic of like having to sacrifice some of your stuff just to make really powerful plays.
Yeah.
In Magic, the color black did a lot of that, like where
Yeah,
you sacrifice your
absolutely.
creatures to gain life, and you'll bring them back from the dead afterwards in even like stronger forms. But it was like all this like little trickery and like dark magic that you had to like play around with.
Resurrect would have actually been a really interesting warlock card, like in Handlock.
Resurrect
even
would have been an overpowered card in Warlock.
Yeah, like wouldn't that have been cool? Because that's very much like a warlock thing,
Bringing
bringing things
back
back from the dead.
Mal'Ganis.
Yeah,
Zombie
Ah,
Mal'Ganis.
I love that idea.
Ooh,
Maybe
they-
cost it more because it's warlock, like 3 mana or something.
They could
but-
maybe make a card like that, like Zombify or something. Cost
Yeah.
4 mana, bring back a
yeah, that would be
demon from the dead.
But I totally agree with you about why Warlock is fun. I think that obviously the card draw is a nice bonus on top of everything you said. But it leads to pretty different decks as we've seen with Handlock. And I just think the cards designed for it are often really interesting because of that drawback mechanic they have. They have a chance to like make more ridiculous cards because it's going both ways.
I feel like a lot of the ridiculous cards happen because they're not allowed to make good cards for Warlock because of the draw card. It's the same reason you don't see any 1-drops getting produced for Warlock because Zoo is scary and we're all scared of Zoo.
And you're having to like worry, like the cards that are pretty good, you have to play specifically like Doomguard. It's such a risk and reward to play, and you can try to get it out with a Void Caller, or you can try to play it from your hand, or you can try to play the rest of your hand out first. So it seems like you're constantly having to evaluate a lot of different factors before you play their cards, which is pretty darn fun.
For some reason, when anybody ever says Void Caller, I think they're talking about Void Terror.
I know. I think I always call it Void Walker or whatever.
There's just a lot of voids. Listen, warlocks are empty in the inside.
I don't know if I've said it on the show yet, but I want Doom Void to be a card that just combines everything Warlock into one.
That'd be nice.
It's a 10-cost card, Doom Void, and it just crashes the game for both players.
Doom Void Coil.
First one to relaunch wins.
Exactly.
Person with the better CPU wins.
Yep, exactly. For me, I just want to be different. I mean, Warlock is a good answer. I used to play a lot of Zoolock, and then I transitioned to Handlock recently, which I'm enjoying a lot. Warrior is also close for me, but sometimes it does feel a little bit too slow or reactive, and I haven't enjoyed any Warrior, or haven't really gotten into any Warriors outside of Control Warrior. So I think I'm going to go ahead and say Paladin has probably been the class I've enjoyed the most for the longest period in the game so far.
You know, if we were World of Warcraft characters, I feel like you would be a Paladin, no matter what.
Andres, my main in World of Warcraft was a Paladin. So you are spot on, sir. Were you a priest, Billy?
No. I had this many ways to answer that question because I had like a lot of characters.
I did too.
But I feel like the one I spent the most time with was a warrior.
Yeah. I played quite a bit of warrior as well. But in terms of Hearthstone, it was actually funny because I was coming in with a predilection for Paladin because I played it in WoW. Yeah. And I didn't love it that much in Hearthstone. So I'm like, that's kind of a bummer. I was really expecting to play a ton of Paladin.
The thing is,
and then GVG came out.
Well, yeah,
and then
GVG
Master for Battle, and
GVG
then Quartermaster.
Yep.
Because the thing is, I feel like in the beginning, especially when Hearthstone launched after the beta, Paladin just didn't have that much of the Paladin feel, especially with the secrets and that whole shebang.
Yeah.
I don't know, secrets just seem weird to me in Paladins.
I don't even know why they're there, really. Yeah.
Listen,
but yeah,
I see a lot of Paladin, classic Paladin hate. Didn't Kalento's Control Paladin win 2 tournaments in a row or something crazy like that? I remember there was some Control Paladin that completely destroyed 2 tournaments in a row. And
he had that
surprised.
super mega responsive Paladin that games would just take forever, and he had a ton of healing and a ton of ways of controlling the board.
It was like playing against Control Warrior, but 9,000 times worse.
Yeah, but even that just didn't seem
you're defeating
like
your own
Paladin.
point, Billy.
It would run a bunch of weird things like Kodos and Elder Peacekeepers. I don't know. It just didn't feel like the commander of an army that is
you have to
Paladin.
Admit, Kodo and Elder Peacekeeper is a pretty awesome combo.
It is a pretty awesome combo.
People were running Humility for that.
Yeah, and Humility too.
I suddenly really want a minion that when he attacks another minion, that minion's attack becomes 1.
And then you run Pyromancers in that deck too, which kind of go against your hero power. That's how weird that deck was.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing a Pyromancer in that deck.
Yeah, they would run Pyromancers and Equalities.
Oh, as a second way to
makes
do
sense.
Equality Consecrate,
Yeah.
That's a 4 mana, board clear. So
I suppose that makes less sense looking at it now because of Muster for Battle, but I suppose back then it wouldn't have been a big deal.
Yeah, back then it was not like that because Paladin just didn't play like that.
You gotta love Muster for battling into a Pyromancer board.
Muster for Battle changed a lot of things. It was pre-Muster for Battle days and then Muster for Battle Paladin.
Hey, we should not undersell, what is it, Avenge?
Avenge, man, that card. I remember when that got announced, like Ben Bird defended that card.
Oh yeah,
For
on
like
the Angry Chicken. Yeah.
Yeah, for like a solid, however long it was since that card
That
got
and
announced.
Duplicate. Yeah, Duplicate was kind of cool though. I don't think Avenge ever really caught on. Maybe an Aggro Paladin.
Duplicate
Avenge never
did
caught on
catch
in Constructed, but it's still pretty decent in Arena.
Yeah, for sure. I go back to secrets don't feel right for paladins. They don't feel like deception is their thing.
You don't want to hide secrets. Paladins are all about truth and speaking up for what they stand for.
I could see
they
like
don't keep
warlocks.
any secrets.
Warlocks having secrets.
They are
maybe.
1 mana secrets. They're not super secret.
Just a little secret.
Let's be honest. When a
lie.
paladin secret comes out, we all know what it is. It's Avenge or it's Noble Sacrifice.
Yeah.
The paladin secret is just like, I ate the last sweet roll. I'm sorry. I'll confess. They don't keep big things too secret. But yeah, paladin after GVG just felt so solid, felt so comfortable. It really felt like playing a paladin. Like you always had an answer. You were kind of a hybrid. You could handle any scenario. You could. I enjoyed playing it so much. It just always had something to do and could keep its tempo consistently, but also transition into the late game.
I agree. That paladin deck always felt very, very solid.
Yep. One might say it was ready for anything, which is my favorite way to describe the paladin deck. So yeah, that's interesting. I guess that was pretty close to the answers I was expecting, actually, but it's probably enlightening to some people in the audience here. Andres going Warlock, Billy going Priest, and me going Paladin. There you go. So if you ever face us in a tournament, you know what to predict.
I won't be playing Priest in any tournament anytime soon.
Fair enough. Fair, Mike. Who is a miles aside? Billy, you have a topic as well this week.
I do. It's a little bit less of a topic. I think people have started to notice what I'm kind of bringing for my topic every week is like a card. Yep. And it's not necessarily always a card that's trying to objectively be the greatest card in the game, but just trying to add something new to the game.
I have to imagine it'd be pretty easy to design a card to be the best card in the game.
Yeah. We got a 1-cost 12/12. Actually, it would have to be a 6/12
nope,
because Big Game Hunter.
Dies to Big Game Hunter.
Yeah. 1-cost 6/12 and triples in power when
cannot be
when
targeted. Cannot be targeted. No. Stealth at the end of the turn gain stealth. There you go.
Yep.
OP. This week, I've brought a card. It has the same stat line as Dr. Boom, so we're looking at a 7/7. The name of this card is Brawl Bear Mantle? Bear Mantle?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know how to pronounce this name. This is a name from the WoW lore. He is a
Bear
legendary
Mantle,
card,
right.
as I said, a 7/7. The battle cry reads, if you have a beast, summon 2/2 treants. 2/2 treants.
2/2 treants. That is my favorite part of this card, is that it reads, if you have a beast, summon 2/2 treants.
I know. Sorry. It's how it has to be.
It's awesome. Yeah. So, first obvious thing to get out of the way, Billy, you're trying to bring Beast Druid into the forefront.
Absolutely.
I see your mind.
Absolutely. Beast Druid needs to happen. So, the idea behind this card is that, I wanted to originally make it an 8-cost card and then kind of have the stat lines a little bit different because I wanted to be able to play this on 8 and then on 9 do the Savage Roar combo.
Oh, God.
And potentially have some of these guys left over. But the potential of that happening is just grossly silly. Being able to do that quickly after playing this card is fairly dangerous. Also, it's a lot of people are going to compare this card to Dr. Boom because obviously it's very, very similar to Dr. Boom's ability. But you could just use Dr. Boom. But this
isn't he worse than Dr. Boom?
Yeah, I was about to say that.
He has 2 health, and some things that it comes on with have 2 health, and we're all going to doubt the 2 health because Boombot's OP. But 2 health can be helpful because the idea is that these want to stick to the board so that your Savage Roars can activate and stuff like that. With a lot of Beast decks, a lot of the Beast Druid decks is a lot of the minions stick to the board, stuff like Horned Creeper and etc., similar to the Beat Stick Druid deck that I made a while ago. And I think this card would fit perfectly into that. However, Dr. Boom does not fit perfectly into that because the Boombots die anyway too quickly for Savage Roar to really work.
What do you think, Andres?
It's interesting. I really like the idea of the card, but just because it's so close to the range of Dr. Boom, it seems that Dr. Boom would just be a little more reliable since you're guaranteed be able to play in the 7th turn and get the 2 boom bots. And this guy, the 2/2s will be stronger than the boom bots in terms that, yeah, one attack won't get rid of them. But I think the boom bots might still just be stronger than the 2/2s just because of the explosion that they do afterwards.
If you look at Broll's face here in the artwork, it looks like he's just incredibly frustrated that Big Game Hunter and Dr. Boom exist.
Yeah. He's just like, gosh darn it! Damn it, why do you consequence?
Oh, it's such a good card!
I really like the concept of the card though, especially because it synergizes with beasts.
Yeah.
But what if he was like a 5/5 that cost 6 and still did the same thing?
Well, the concern there is that you can't deal with the 5/5. And then if you're doing that, then, well, you can't deal with it easily. Like, I wanted this thing to be in Big Game Hunter range.
Yeah, it's almost too good then.
Yeah, it would be improved by lowering its mana cost, and it would be too good.
It's an interesting card, though. Like, going back to the broader point of, like, the Beast Druid synergy, do you think this would be enough for people to run Beast Druid, or would you need more? Because I think they would just run normal Druid with Dr. Boom, but you would have to be, like, with a set.
I kind of didn't want to mention this, because I wanted to eventually kind of release it all at once, but I've just been here and then whenever I'm bored working on kind of like a Hearthstone expansion thing. The idea is eventually I'll have 10 cards for each class, and then, and this is going to sound crazy because this is going to take a long time, have Death Knight also caught up to the amount of cards that are in each class currently. And then also do neutrals for the same expansion, like the same pretend expansion.
So we can expect this, what, next week?
Yeah, absolutely. But this card belongs in a set of Druid cards, which all kind of, well, not all, but a lot of them would work in, say, a Beast Druid deck, which is why I don't think this card on its own could attract a Beast Druid deck, but I think the rest of these cards here would help that quite a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. This is just kind of a sneak preview.
No, that's pretty cool. That actually ties really well into our listener topic this week.
Yes.
And we actually got an email in, guys. An email that suggested a topic.
Woo! Emails!
Pretty awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and read it out here. Greetings to all you digital drunkards.
I heard about your part of this email. I'm sorry. That is a great title. We are the digital drunkard.
If we ever just make, I don't know, a generic video game podcast, we need to name it that, because that's really good. I love that. All right. I heard about your podcast via The Angry Chicken, and I must say I am impressed. You all have great banter and give a more casual voice to the everyman player of Hearthstone. On to the topic. I would love for you all to discuss which type of tribe/creature types you'd like to see in upcoming expansions, and what types of mechanics do you feel would best emulate them. Thank you for your time, Matthew. Well, thank you, first of all, Matthew, for sending that in and all of your nice comments. That is really awesome, and I think that's really what we're going for.
Thanks, Matthew, for taking the time of writing that, and I really appreciate the email.
Yeah.
I like that he gets the vibe of the show, too. He's like casual, but still talk about interesting topics. I like that.
Yeah, I think everyman is a pretty good way to describe our show. We're like right in the middle there. At least for me and Billy, kind of like, in the middle of the ladder, haven't reached legend, but are definitely trying to get there. So definitely awesome name you came up with, Matthew, and thank you for the email. But on to the subject itself. I'm going to let you guys go here first. Billy, did you have any ideas for this?
Pick me. Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the subtypes I would like to see most in Hearthstone is an undead. Because I think that, well, first of all, Death Knight needs to happen, if that happens. But if undead happens, there's so many crazy things you can do with undead. First of all, I'm pretty sure you would need a graveyard system at that point to be able to do certain effects. But that gets super complicated, so I won't go into that. But some undead stuff could be really cool. We've kind of already seen a lot of Death Rattle stuff in the game, so I don't think they would do it anytime soon. But
I think that's a really good point. I think undead is really smart as well, because if you think about doing the different races, like if it's Forsaken, that's tougher, because if you do one race, you kind of need to start doing them all, and all of the races have so many cards that have already been designed that could completely throw off the synergy. But undead is a creature type in World of Warcraft that goes beyond just like the race. It's more like dragons or more like, humanoids or something. So I think it fits in that it wouldn't just feel like we're doing dwarves, but not humans or elves or anything else.
There's a slight complication with doing undead, though. First of all, Mad Scientist officially is overpowered.
Oh, no, yeah. Zombie Chow, like lots of stuff fit into
there's already a lot of cards in the game which would be considered undead that would automatically become overpowered depending on how undead synergy worked. For instance, we've seen examples of this in the past, being Harvest Golem was turned into a mech, although Spider Tank was better. So
it did okay.
Yeah, so there was no issue there.
Obviously, we just need a better Mad Scientist.
Yeah, we just need a better Mad Scientist and a better Zombie
Chow. 2 secrets.
And a better Sludge Belcher.
Oh, yeah. Like, this is scary stuff to buff. That's for sure.
I don't know if you actually count Sludge Belcher as undead. Do you count Abominations as undead?
I would say...
they are created by undead.
Yeah, you, like...
And then one card I would be fairly excited about getting some type of synergy would be Unstable Ghoul. And Flesh-Eating Ghoul. And stuff like that. Cards that are currently in the game which... see
not
zero play, stuff like ghouls being turned into
unstable ghoul hasn't worked in.
Ghouls and Zombie Chow can be thrown in there too.
Yeah. That's a pretty interesting one. I like that one. Andres, did you have a thought on this? Do you have your own type?
I was thinking about it, and like one of the things I really like when I used to play Magic was that most of the cards had some sort of type in them already, and I know that you said like it would be kind of hard to implement, especially because a lot of the cards in the game might have like two types. You know what I mean? Like it could be like a human and something else. I don't know.
Yeah, because Magic had the thing of they release a new set. There are types now, but they're reprinting all the cards they wouldn't be in that set. So
you're right.
All the cards are gone.
I do miss that. I really like that because it groups cards into all these like little subgroups and genres, and you can get very thematic with them, and then you can include cards that really work around like this big themes of cards. Like for example, if you have 2 orcs in play, give +2/+2 to this card, or stuff like that. Mechanics that allow you to play with the types of the cards. And I miss that from Magic. I would love if Hearthstone would play around that a little more. Especially now that the games get a little more cluttered with stuff. They're gonna have to find alternative ways to keep evolving the game and keep adding mechanics and keeping it interesting. And I feel like card types are a good way of going around those things.
Yeah. That was interesting for me because I've kind of had the opposite impression, and I might play a little bit of the devil's advocate here in that at first I thought, it'll be easy to come up with a card type. And then I was like, I can't think of any.
Hold up. Yeah, that's a difficult thing to do.
And then I'm like, okay, turns out there aren't nearly as many card types as I thought. And then I thought in addition, I'm not sure I like card types even being a thing in Hearthstone.
Oh, that hurts me.
And there are a couple reasons I have for that. I'll put the caveat that I think they work really well in class-specific things. Like, I'm almost thinking limit card types to Beast for Hunter and Demon for Warlock. Because it's actually a really good way to bring in how those classes play, which is having, like, specific synergy with their minions. So that might be, like, the unique Warcraft way to do card types, or subtypes is just, have them for the Hunters and the Warlocks and their pets, if you will. But I think one reason I don't love it for Hearthstone is essentially what card types are doing, and we've seen that in Murloc decks and that sort of thing, is they're telling you what sorts of synergies to use. And they're kind of saying, like, use this card with this card, and kind of giving you almost a hint or kind of a pre-built way to make cards synergize with each other, rather than having you figure something out like, oh, wait, Knife Juggler with, what's that spider called? The spider that drops 2 1/1s.
Haunted Creeper.
Haunted Creeper. Yeah, those work really well together. Creature types tend to lend themselves more to just like obvious decks. And more than that, I find they're just not as interesting of cards and types to work around with. Like if you think about GVG as an expansion, it was super focused on mech cards. And because not a lot of classes ended up doing much with mech decks, it left a lot of dead cards from that. A lot of the stuff in Warrior, a lot of mech-specific synergy cards just felt kind of bad because you didn't want to be playing mechs. We saw the same thing with dragons in Blackrock. Well, Naxxramas, which I think was the best expansion, instead focused on a mechanic with Death Rattle. And that just worked in the game a lot better. And Hearthstone is a simple enough game that I don't necessarily think it needs to be telling you what kind of synergies to use by using creature types, but instead focus more on mechanics and leaving the synergies up to the players. So that was kind of what I thought. What do you guys think on that?
That's an interesting point.
Understand
I can agree with that.
That point of view, but I have an issue with that point of view.
All right.
Because I don't think that's necessarily true. So, for instance, in the mech point of view, my dad, not very much, but my dad does play Hearthstone now and then, and he's played other card games in the past. And for some reason, when mechs first came out, and this is the only experience I'd seen with a player who's not really, looking out for net decks or anything like that. He completely makes all of his own decks. This is my only experience with that. He's my only person I can go to and see, like, oh, what is the general player of Hearthstone doing right now? Yep. And you said it's really obvious to take a subtype deck and make it into something, right? So you saw a lot of mech mages and the way they did things. Mm-hmm. My dad also went with mech mage. Not because he saw somebody else do it or anything like that.
It's intuitive.
It's like
Murlocs.
But his was bad. Like, straight up bad. Like, we're running, like, not necessarily bad in comparison to the one that everyone was running. Like, he was running mech yetis and, just the like, there were a lot of mech cards in GVG that weren't necessarily good. And I don't think that necessarily is because of the same reasons. There's always going to be dead cards. Like, you were talking about how there were a lot of dead cards. And Warriors with Siege Engine and Warbot and...
Junkbot?
What's the other one I was thinking of? Junkbot. No, Junkbot wasn't the Warrior one. That was a neutral. Warrior one was called Screwjank Clunker. Which is a ridiculous name. I can't believe I remembered that. I think those cards were going to be dead either way. You did see people try them, but it wasn't necessarily very well done. And I don't think that was necessarily because of the subtype. I just don't think they were particularly great cards.
Yeah, that's a counterpoint. I mean, we haven't seen enough expansions to get a huge data collection. I did think it was interesting that the two latest expansions have both used creature types, and they've fallen a little flat, apart from a deck or two in both of them. Nexoramos focused on Death Rattle, and there were just so many interesting cards that came from that. So I'm wondering if there might be some correlation there, but it was kind of just a thought.
I think the reason why Naxxramas was so interesting is because, number one, it was our first ever Hearthstone expansion, and I would imagine a lot of the ideas they had from Naxxramas were cards they wanted to throw in the original set.
Sure.
But they looked at some of the card, like, this, no knowledge of this is what all this, I'm just speculating this. I would imagine the way, that Naxxramas was made is because they had like a couple cards left over from when they first made the original set, and they maybe had some Death Rattle synergy because they had Death Rattle cards in the game, hence Loot Hoarder and stuff like that. It wasn't like a new mechanic, right? But then when Naxxramas came along, I'm assuming what they said is they were like, oh, we can now use these Death Rattle cards because this suits thematically or whatever order that happened in.
That's a good point.
So that's why I think that happened. Also, with these ideas are going to run thin when there's this many cards in the game, and you're going to see that with all of the expansions. There's always going to be dead cards, and there's always going to be super popular cards, and there's always going to be...
I guess I just find a focus on mechanics a lot more interesting than a focus on creature type, because for one thing, it requires less of your deck to be built around a specific thing. You can summon a couple of that mechanic, and it's not like losing value throwing a Death Rattle card into a non-Death Rattle deck. If anything, Death Rattle specific decks don't really work either. I also just like the style of play it lends to, and that flexibility you get from it. And I think it worked really well in Naxxramas. You make good points about why it might not be what they do going forward. But for example, from GVG, I found the most interesting thing, or one of the most interesting things from that expansion, was the whole piloted mechanic, which is their attempt not to add a creature type in, but to add a new mechanic that's being added to the game. Counterpoint to myself on this, though, that seems to have fallen a little flat with their BlackRock mechanic they brought in the game with creature deaths.
Kill the creature stuff?
Yeah, so it's not like it's a surefire way either. That
so
seems to
I
be
have
going
a
the way of
hypothesis
dragons.
for this thing. The problem, I think, is, especially with the small expansions, is that they introduce a mechanic, but it's just kind of like a little taste. Because you kind of have to spread all the cards to cover different themes, right? You have dragons, you have the kill the stuff, plus a few other miscellaneous cards that you might be adding to balance, or for utility, or to help out other decks. Like, for example, Patron. The Patron is an example of those cards. But there's not enough cards that get released to, for example, with dragons, we see that there's not enough meat to give you options. They're just like, okay, I have these dragons, I have to build something with these, there's no leeway, I have to make it work with what I have. Instead of being more, I have a ton of dragons, I could build a dragon deck that could do this, I could build a dragon deck that could do that, and kind of adapt it differently to the metagame. I think the way to solve that, though, is by adding more cards.
Like more cards to these mechanics that they're introducing. Don't just drop them
exactly.
And go for
so,
new
for
every
example, in the next expansion, just add more dragons and add more of the, hey, if this creature dies, it becomes cheaper, or if creatures die, it becomes cheaper.
That's one of my other fears with creature types, though, is as they add more, it's like every expansion needs to give you some pirate cards, and some mechs, and some dragons, and some undead, and it's just like at some point, and some murlocs, so many of the cards are going to be having to focus on creature types in specific decks that there's going to be so little crossover. Like, you can't use all of those cards in the same deck, so it's limiting creativity of deck building a lot over time.
You could say that, but a lot of the dragons and a lot of the mechs get used in different decks, right? So,
not
like,
the murlocs, but those.
Well, yeah, but let's be honest, murlocs and pirates are gimmicks, right? So that doesn't really necessarily, in my opinion, count. And then you've also, the point that I would like to raise is that a lot of the subtypes necessarily wouldn't be that great if there were even more of them. Like, would Murlocs necessarily be that amazing if there were more Murlocs, or there were more Murloc synergy? Would dragons be any better in like, would Twilight Whelp all of a sudden be insane if there was another dragon?
Yeah.
Like,
and I'm torn on whether the ease of these synergy decks is helpful or bad for new players, because my brother as well went for like a Beast Hunter deck, and it's nice because people are grasping onto these synergies, and it's an introduction of how cards work with each other. But like you said, Billy, it also it might lead them to playing some pretty bad decks, just because it's almost like a pre-build. So that's interesting. I like hearing the counterpoint to that. It was just, as I was thinking on the creature type, I just realized, like, I don't even know if I want more creature types. It's not really a thought I'd considered before. So.
It's a good point, and it's nice that you brought it up, because it could get messy, and that might be the reason why they have chosen to deliberately not do it.
Yeah. That's actually true. And I also just think it could be easy. Every expansion is a different creature type, and I want them to think outside the box more than that. So we'll see what we get. They definitely did some cool stuff in the last 3 expansions. So certainly doesn't seem like they're running out of ideas.
I wonder what's coming up in the future. I'm really interested in seeing, because I have a feeling it's going to be another big expansion. So.
Oh yeah, I think they've announced they're doing trading off between adventures and expansions.
Yeah, didn't they say forever ago? I'm pretty sure before GVG was announced that they were going to do adventure expansion.
Yep.
So if that logic works, then next expansion is a proper expansion like GVG.
Yeah, I'm not positive on the release cycle yet, though, time between. So I'm actually really curious.
I'm almost positive that we'll see an announcement for this one in the next 2 to 3 months.
You don't think it'll be BlizzCon end of year again?
No.
Okay.
I hope so. Don't know what they would do for BlizzCon this year if it's if it works the same way I just said. But the way it's worked, as far as I'm aware, I'd have to double check my facts, is that it's been, I think, 6 months between each expansion. I think GVG was announced roughly GVG was released roughly 6 months after Naxxramas came out, and then Blackrock Mountain was released roughly 6 months after GVG.
Yeah, and they're kind of running out of announcements like Hearthstone is coming to phones. It'll be like Hearthstone is coming to your washing machine, so you can play Hearthstone.
Hearthstone is coming to your keyboard. Yep.
With the little LCD screen.
Yeah, I want to play Hearthstone. I want to play Hearthstone on my keyboard while I play Hearthstone on my computer, while I play Hearthstone on my iPhone, while I play Hearthstone on my iPad.
Yeah, you got to rank up in all those territories. Actually, I think that's more. That's more platforms than there are territories. So,
damn it.
All right. Speaking of territories, iTunes has different territories. different stores.
Isn't there a way couldn't you have said speaking of different territories were
No,
also
Billy,
available
no,
on iTunes?
I couldn't.
Okay, alright. That
All
might have
right,
been
we
better.
got an iTunes review.
Okay,
which
that
is-
works, because you could
Yes.
you could have done that way better. Anyway, go on.
Billy, I don't want you critiquing my hosting here. I've got it under
Continue
control.
I'm going to
Because
continue
of
to critique.
look, because of all this dissension in the ranks, we are now 1.7732.
Oh no, we keep
Damn it.
falling too fast.
Gosh darn it, Billy, we can't have this. All right,
Don't worry,
so we
when this
got a
episode
5-star.
posts, it will go up. Don't you worry.
We got a 5-star review from Rovin, and his title is Super Rad Podcast. I'm already a fan of this review.
I already like it.
The review reads, I found out about this podcast through the Angry Chicken, and I've looked all over the place for a second Hearthstone podcast, and so far nothing has ever met the standards that I have. Until now. Hearthaholics is well thought out, very professional. Oh, and by the way, that intro music is insane.
Nice.
And perhaps most importantly, the hosts are excited about Hearthstone, which is probably the biggest reason why I love this podcast. Keep up the awesome work, Hearthaholics team. Here's to a bright and long future.
Yeah,
That was
very
super
nice.
nice, Roman. Thank you so much.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, if anyone else wants to read us 5-star reviews.
Could you please
Want to
read
leave
us 5-star reviews for us? We'll invite you on the show to read them.
It's my favorite thing to do before I go to bed. Just have somebody sit down and read me 5-star reviews of our show.
It's just like falling asleep as they read them
It
to
makes
you.
me have the sweetest dreams.
That's actually really good. I'm going to record myself saying them and listening to them on loop in a tape player just to go to sleep. Yeah, I'm going to use a tape player.
Tape player. Where did
how
we go
old-fashioned
off
I
to? Where
Yeah,
did we
tape
hop
players,
in
they're
a
great.
DeLorean?
What, this episode sponsored by Sony Walkman. All right. If you want to
people got
leave
that
us an
reference.
iTunes review, just check us out on iTunes, search Hearthaholics, and we would absolutely love it if you did, and we'll read it off on the show. So thank you very much again, Robin. You can also find us on Stitcher, which apparently people use for podcasts. I use Apple stuff, so it's all over my head. Or you could email us at hearthaholics@gmail.com. For any other listener subjects like this time, we'd love to have another listener topic next week, so go ahead and email us any of your ideas. You can also get in touch with us on Twitter at Hearthaholics and search for Hearthaholics, a Hearthstone podcast on YouTube or Facebook, and you can find us. Actually, it might be Hearthaholics Strategies of Hearthstone. So just search Hearthaholics. No one else is using the name.
You'll find it.
Where can people find you and your work, Andres?
People can find me on Twitter at iPlayGames, and you spell that IPLAI Games. You can also find me on my website, massivemusic.com. You can listen to all of our music catalog over there. We have all of our music up for sale and license. And you can find the intro music to this podcast over there as well.
Yep, and you can have all the links to that in the show notes. If you want to find the exact URL or any of that, just check the show notes and you can see it there. You just released some new music as well, Andres, so congrats on that.
This week we came out with a new updated website that has all of our licensing stuff in there. So we make it really easy for YouTube content creators or Twitch guys to get some cool music. And then our new collection of songs just came out. It's all very cinematic and futuristic. So if you're into that, make sure to check it out.
Nice. I plan to buy and listen to that tonight to pump me up as I stare at numbers and work out financials for the business.
Oh, it's
so that'll
great.
be
It's
fun.
great for accounting. It really relaxes you.
Excellent.
I like the idea of marketing your music to accountants.
Exactly. QuickBooks needs to get in touch with you and license it for their software.
It makes adding up numbers a lot more exciting.
Exactly. Billy, where can people find you?
You can find me at the Twitter thing at @bBroly. That is a B in front of my in front of my name. Yes, it is. If you hate Heroes of the Storm, you'll hate my channel at youtube.com/BrolyHS, where I upload a lot of Heroes of the Storm stuff. I also every now and again do Hearthstone, but that's kind of getting rare these days.
Yeah, you just uploaded a new video, didn't you?
Yeah, just uploaded gameplay of the new hero Joanna, and she is a silly amount of fun.
And we're sure that's not pronounced Joanna, right?
Almost positive it's Joanna.
Okay.
I think it's, Joanna.
Okay, just making sure.
Or
Didn't want to be
Johanna.
insensitive. Johanna.
I need to redo this video if I was pronouncing it Joanna.
Johanna. That's the best pronunciation. If you want to find me on Twitter, I am Lord Meldor. That is LordMeldorr. I do a lot of stuff. We are a property of the Whales Are Whales Network, and that's a podcast and internet media network that myself and my brother run. I won't run down all the shows I do. Just go to whalesorwhales.com and you can see our whole lineup there. But if I'm going to point one out, my brother and I do a video game music podcast called Train Station at 8. We get different guests on each week to talk video game music, have a little fun quiz segment, have a question of the week we all answer, and just sit back, relax, and talk about the music of video games. And it's our longest running podcast on there, and it's super fun and enjoyable. So check that out if you're a fan of video games and or music. Finally, you can find us all doing the Angry Chicken Gaming Group. Just go to the Angry Chicken subreddit. That is a fellow Hearthstone podcast that inspired us all. And I post every week about a game night. Go ahead and attend that, and you can talk to me, Billy, Andres, and many others as we chat and play Hearthstone. It's typically at 8 p.m. on Tuesdays, so check that out. Oh, that's 8 p.m. Central Time, by the way. All right, and to leave you until next week, druids who fought too long in Northrend were easily seduced by Ragnaros. A mug of hot chocolate was generally all it took.
Let the hunt begin.